Hi, Mike. Good to see you today. Today's guest is a true expert in kidnap and ransom and high pressure environments, someone who's made a career out of protecting others when things go wrong. Michael Clayton is the founder and lead consultant of Tech Group Solutions, a boutique security consulting firm that specializes in everything from crisis management and kidnap for ransom negotiations to executive protection and proactive risk assessments. With over 20 years in the field, he's built a global network and a stellar reputation for his ability to manage the most complex security situations with precision and discretion. He's advised multinational corporations, high net worth families, and NGOs, helping them navigate threats that most of us only hear about in the news or see in movies. What sets him apart is not just his expertise, but his commitment to personalized service and real world results. But before launching Tag Group Solutions and leading some of the most challenging security operations, his journey started in a very different place. So let's rewind a bit. Mike, good to have you this morning. How did your path into this world of negotiating kidnap and ransom begin?
Morning, Tony. Thank you. Yes. How did it begin? Well, it began, I grew up in South America. My father worked for the State Department, and every 2 or 3 years we'd travel around Latin America, living in many of the countries and now working in almost every country in Latin America. I've been managing cases in Europe, in Africa, and in Asia as well. So, how did it begin? Well, I knew the language, I knew the area, and my father, because he worked for the US government and lived down there, had a lot of contacts and had managed some cases while he was with the State Department. In 1994, my father had retired and gone back into Latin America, come back to the States, and in 1994, he asked me to come and help him manage a case. Not help him, but be there with him.
Mhm.
And I said, Dad, why would you want somebody like me? I don't have the training, the expertise that you do. And there is certainly uh, you get a lot of calls from friends and ex-government employees to work with you, for you to train them. He goes, yeah, I need somebody who knows the language. And well, there's not another blue-eyed American at that time that spoke Spanish like I did. There are very few of us at that time. And he goes, yeah, so you know the language. I need somebody who knows the area. And well, I grew up there and, and I can certainly move around there. And he said, I need somebody who knows the culture of Latin America, not only of Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, but need to know how the people work down there and to do the job, to get in and get back out. And so I agreed to go with him on a case. And shortly after that, he got a call to manage a case. And I went down with him. He was a 15-year-old boy. After 17 days, he was released, and I'll never forget when the young man entered the house earlier that evening. The father did his going through the house, locking up, and my father told him, leave the front door open and the main gate to the property open. He did. At 3 in the morning, his son, opened the door to the house and said, Mama, Papa, Mom, Dad, I am home. A kidnapping is an emotional roller coaster that the family goes through. Of course, the victim goes through as well. But there was not a dry eye in the house, including my father's, of which I was surprised to see. Looked up over and up at him, and he had a tear coming down. And I said, Dad, after all these years, you too? And he goes, my heart breaks with every case. And certainly I'm wiping the tears off my face and go, yeah, it's a roller coaster. Of course, the family, embraced him, brought him in, and he began to tell us his experience. In many cases, the way the kidnappers work is kind of universal, worldwide. How the victim is treated is usually they're treated fairly well. They're not at a hotel or anything like that. They're on the floor. But they're not mistreated. Maybe shackled at first, blindfolded at first, but knowing how to survive, how to best survive A kidnapping is something that we teach people, that we train them. But we train them, one, how to be a hard target to not get kidnapped. Two, if security does fail and you are kidnapped, then how to best survive. So my father looked at me and goes, "Well, are you in?" And I'm still wiping the tears away. I'm in. I had a small restaurant at the time. And he goes, "What about your business?" And I go, "I sold it days ago."
Yeah.
And so from then on, we went on to another two cases. And my wife called me up one day and she goes, "You know what the heck's going on? Are you ever coming home?" "Yeah, wrapping up this case now, and I'll be home in a couple of days."
Now, where was your restaurant? What
In
was going through your mind as you're looking at your restaurant and you're about to embark on this, you know, pretty interesting journey, and
Yeah,
also fairly to the layman, it would seem like a dangerous industry, right? From
yeah.
going from a restaurant to that world,
To traveling through some areas where kidnapping is a problem.
right?
Well, it's
Main
you know
industry, right?
In I compare it to the media, the news media showing a forest fire. Well, it's a small portion of the forest that's burning, not the whole state or county. So kidnapping, violence like that, extortions, crime like that happens worldwide. Kidnapping happens mostly in Latin America, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, of course. But you talk to people down there, like in Mexico or Central America or South America, life goes on. It's just one small problem that has to be dealt with. Same in the United States. There's small pockets of problems that have to be dealt with. Same in other countries. You can go down there. Latin America is a fantastic place to do business. It's a fantastic place to take vacations. Yes, it does have a problem
Mhm.
and you have to address it as you go down there. And so I take care of myself. I took care of my business in the Bay Area, and I take care of myself and the business in Latin America or wherever I'm traveling to.
Now, can you tell us about a recent case without divulging any?
Yeah, I was on a one of the most recent cases, a client. He lived in the United States, did business in the US, but mostly in Mexico. And so he would travel across the border on a daily basis. He had two offices in Mexico, and he was lured in by a uh, supposed, friendly person,
Mhm.
client. He later learned that the client was tied with the cartels, and he couldn't extract himself from the business fast enough before he got lured into a position where he was taken. He immediately thought, Mike would have told me not to go just because of the situation. Uh, and this was a client that had been in contact prior because of a prior kidnapping in his business. So he went down. He was taken. He was taken from a restaurant, which is a bit unusual. Usually, people are taken from the vehicle or from their office area outside their office. So he's taken from a restaurant. People see it. The guns are drawn. Clients see what's going on. They know who my client was. They recognize the bad guys as cartel members, and they took them. We eventually got a phone call from them with a demand, a high demand, but something that the family could not reach that amount. And little by little, as they provided proof of life, they came down with their demand. Meanwhile, although we never used the word negotiate, but we negotiated the settlement and got him back. First thing he said when he was home, "Mike, I never thought it would happen to me." And when I went to be with his family to help as the calls came in, One of the first things his wife said is, Mike, we never thought it would happen to us. Well, you read about it on a daily basis. It does happen. Doesn't happen to everybody, of course, but you go into an area and you expose yourself, you're opening the door to this type of problem. So, what to do? Well, there are precautions that you can take as a business person, as an executive traveling there, and of course, even vacationers have to take some precautions. They know the problems. The problems are there. If you don't do some research, you're becoming vulnerable, and the likelihood of a kidnap will goes up.
I'm sure you have some sort of protocol that you share with the clients or some education. But
You
going
bet.
back to what you said earlier, proof of life. So I watched the movie Proof of Life as well as All the Money in the World. They dramatize kidnap negotiations and crisis scenarios. From your experience, how accurate do they reflect the dynamics that are actually happening?
Not at all. A small percentage of that is true. In the movie Proof of Life, Russell Crowe, Meg did a good job. Russell Crowe uh, did a did a good job, except for it was Hollywood. I don't jump out of helicopters or rappel down to rescue the victim. I took my wife and children to see that movie. My youngest son said, you know go and rescue people?" My older son said, "And you have affairs with the wife?" Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, that
But the real person that suffers the most in these cases is the family or the company that the victim works for or owns. The family suffers because they're hearing from the bad guys the worst things that you can possibly imagine. The company is not working at full force at 100% because they've got a major person out, and everybody else in that company is thinking, wow, it could happen to me. I go there, how is the company going to respond, to react if I'm kidnapped?
Mhm.
So they have doubts, so they're not, their mind is on that, and so they're not going out with 100% of a mindset to do business. They're contracting a bit and not giving it 100%. I've seen major corporations having to close their doors because they can't get the best people to go out into the field to do what needs to be done. My father and I perfected the Clayton methodology in managing kidnap cases. So we managed the case by putting controls in, controlling the our communicator, controlling, giving them information as to what to say, when to say it. And so we train them on that. We are there as the case from day one until the end of the case, no matter how long it takes. We'll
Mhm.
have we'll have a consultant there, myself or another person. And so at the beginning, what you need is proof of life. You want to make sure that the person is safe and sound. And number two, equally important, you want to make sure that you're talking to the right people because many of these cases are done during the daylight hours. A lot of witnesses, and maybe even the police get wind of it and they start investigating. So you want to make sure that you have your all your ducks in a row. You want to make sure that you know that the person calling and making the demand is the actual person that has the victim. And we have ways to figure that out. Proof of life, POL,
Mhm.
is the best proof. And there are different levels of proof of life that we accept. Some we don't. Then we ask another question. But in many cases, we get multiple callers trying to extort some fast money from the family or from the company.
So is that what happened in All the Money in the World? They were receiving a lot of bogus sightings, bogus letters
Yes,
saying, and if you paid this, and that's just to get in on the action, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
We had a case where it was a neighbor that actually saw our client being kidnapped right outside their home, the victim's home. His neighbor called the wife, fingiendo, making her believe that he was a one of the kidnappers. He knew the client, gave some descriptions of him, described the actual scene. She believed him and immediately ran out with a couple of $1,000s in her handbag to pay it. But well, she got that taken away from her. He had nothing to do with the kidnapping.
That's somebody she's gonna have to see dig, or did he end up moving, or?
We found this out when we did an investigation after the case.
So, what are you seeing KNR more prominent in the crypto world now? Because I've been seeing a lot of news, especially in Europe, of crypto executives or people involved with crypto getting.
Yep. Uh, what what the what a kidnapper needs to know are just two things. One, can the victim, company, family pay a ransom? Does he have that capability? Two, where is that person going to be at a given time? Business owners, we love routines. It makes money. We
Yep.
like to repeat things. So we wake up at the same time every day. We leave the house at the same time every day. And we usually take the same route to and from. So once kidnapper knows those two things, where you're going to be at a given time and can you pay a ransom, that they've got you. So definitely the people being taken fall into those two camps. They have the money and they have a routine. You break one of those, should be the routine. You break one of those, you become a difficult target. Usually kidnappers have more than two or three people on their list, and they figure out who is the easiest one, because all the people on their list are worth the same. They're going to ask the same amount for them. They just want to figure out which is the easiest one, who has the routine, the easiest routine to get into. And so then they determine where and how they're going to draw that person to that spot, whether they do it by trying to make an appointment with them, or they figure out where that person slows down to make a turn on their route.
So
And we see an increase in it, and it's going to continue.
now, are you getting a lot of calls from crypto executives?
Not yet. Some executives, especially their security people, are calling me to ask me questions to give them to be able to translate it to their bosses.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised how much of those questions are directed to regarding the family of the head of the family,
Mhm.
of the father. So because of travel that the family does, apart from the business owner,
Right.
especially on vacations, what to do, what not to do. And so I give them a brief
Mhm.
security briefings regarding their movements.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how much of that happens.
Hmm.
Now, why is it such an industry in those countries when there's other ways to earn a living? And then what's the profit?
High profit doesn't take a lot to organize a kidnapping, but it does take organization. So there's the leader of a gang. He makes the decisions. There are two or three people that do the information gathering. There's a communicator, and then there's a group that does the actual kidnapping. They have to be organized, select a person, select a victim, select the site. They have to have a safe house to go from point A to point B from the actual kidnap site to a safe house, the kidnapper's safe house. They have a time frame that they want to work in. They have already pre-selected the amount they're going to ask for. They're going to try to control the conversation by talking to us to a member of the company or the family, and that takes organization. that takes some time to set up. And so it's like a business plan. 97% of all attempted kidnaps are successful because they are organized, hence the name organized crime.
Pretty big business.
Yeah,
They have
it,
some basic fundamentals of planning in
yeah.
place. How large of a role, I mean, how do companies typically respond to this, and how big of a role does insurance play into
Companies normally respond, let's pay it, get Peter back, and we'll readdress of what we're going to do in that country. We'll deal with security afterwards. My plan is continue working. Let's take control of what we have and move forward. So what do you have control of? You have control of three basic things. You have control of the money. You have control of who talks to the kidnappers, and you have control of when you talk to the kidnappers. And so we use those aces that we have to manage the case. And we end up having more control of the bad guys than they have control of us. We come to an agreement and we make the exchange. It's never face-to-face exchange. You go to a drop site, you leave the money there. Then 1 to 3 hours later, usually the victim is released after the money has been counted, dispersed. The gang disperses, and they at the same time release the victim in good shape. This is a business for them. They want to repeat this type of business because it's easy money. So they take care of the client, their client, the victim. There are cases where the victims are killed. You don't always know why, uh, but their kidnap for ransom business, the victims are usually taken fairly good care of. Yes, they're restricted in their movement, restricted in their ability to have any freedoms, but the longer a case lasts, the less likely that the victim is going to be mistreated.
this? Why is that?
Well, um, it's better for the bad guys to show that they've released the person in good shape, and also the kidnappers, believe it or not, their family, they have families,
Mhm.
and so the victim will humanize himself with the captors, and
Interesting.
so it becomes more difficult for them to harm the victim. And especially a trained person that's received some security briefing, knows how to act in this type of dangerous situation, will also take control of the situation. And you have to remember, the victim is never alone.
Mhm.
There's a higher power, whether you believe in that or not. In religion, I've never met a victim that has not prayed for their to survive. So it's we train people how to best survive this
Mhm.
type of situation, and they do. Had one young lady kidnapped, just a 16-year-old young lady. She came back in very good shape. She came through the door at midnight, and her mother rushed towards her. She put her hands up and said, "No, no, 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 don't come near me." She ran upstairs, and the mother looked at me, and I said, "Go up after her." And the young lady had passed by me, and she hadn't taken a bath in 2 weeks. So
She was blind.
she, so she wanted to clean up and then talk with her family. Her her biggest complaint was, yeah, I put on 2 pounds because I didn't have my usual exercise, my usual routines.
How long was she gone for?
2 weeks, 14 days.
Really?
And the mother came down with a bag of clothing, holding her nose, saying, she's okay. She just burned this.
So what would you say is the range from, like, what's the longest and what's the shortest time they've been held? And
Yep.
also, how far down the negotiate, like, how much do does the ask come down
Yeah.
relative to
It The the shortest case I've ever had is less than 24 hours. And I've actually answered the crisis telephone and given instructions to the victim's family or the company. And I was at the airport waiting for my flight that very evening.
So you did negotiation.
And I had been on the phone with the victim's family, with the company, and I'm waiting for my flight. They announce the flight, people start to board, and I'm on the telephone, and they're describing to me the drop, the ransom drop, and the victim comes back. Yeah, that was a fast case. And in some countries, that's how it usually happens. Most kidnap cases that I manage are in Latin America, and they last between 1 to 3 days. 7 days would be a long-term case these days. The shortest one has just been hours, and you can do that sometimes. But you have to be able to figure out, is this an express kidnap, or is this going to be a drawn-out one, a long-term one? A long-term can be 3 days these days in, say, Mexico. South America. The longest case I've had would be 18 months, and my father and I were managing that one. I would stay 30 days, and then he would come in and spell me, and he would be there 30 days, and until the ransom was uh, was paid. And that depends on the country, really. Where they hold the victim. Is it in town, in a city? Is it outside the city? Is it yeah, up in the hills, up in the mountains, where the police, the military cannot easily get into?
So this is not a man on fire situation where you can send a Denzel Washington to go retrieve.
No such thing. No such thing. There are a lot of claims to that.
Yeah.
But I have encouraged the police only in one case in my over actually over a little over 30 years now, managing kidnap for ransom cases and extortion cases worldwide. I've only used the local SWAT team once,
Mhm.
and that was because the client and the kidnappers knew each other, so we knew who the kidnapper was, and so we it's always the family's decision,
Mhm.
but they most of the time people follow my recommendations of what our next measure is going to be, our next steps are going to be. And so we used the SWAT team, knocked down some doors, and eventually got the victim back home in very good shape.
And that's without paying the ransom as well.
That was without paying a ransom, correct?
So it sounds like most of the time you just don't know who's kidnapping.
Yeah, my job is to get the person back as quickly as possible. To do that, you have to make sure that you're managing the situation within the time period that they have begun. What would take you outside of that time period that they have preset would be that you pay too much, would be that you're not paying enough. So my goal is to pay what I describe as the going rate. What's the going rate for an American, Canadian, French, German kidnap? What's the going, and the country, of course, makes a difference. What area in the country he's been kidnapped makes a difference. If it's here in the United States, if it's in Mexico, Central or South America, or
Mhm.
Asia, how I manage the case is a bit different. The amount that's being asked for is different. The amount that is usually paid is different. So it varies. You have to have experience in those countries
Mhm.
to make that decision. And it's
So it's I mean there's it sounds like it's a defined market, and so long as you understand the market, you're going to pay a fair price.
that's what your goal is, to pay a fair price and get your person back. And that's what the kidnappers, they would love to have 100% of what they're asking for in the time period that they're asking for. That's an easy job. And as any business person, you want to repeat that job with the same victim later on. If they're asking for $1 million in 3 days, and you pay $1 million in 3 days, that's an easy job. Why not keep the ransom money maintain the victim and ask for 10 times as much. The kidnappers have made a mistake. They should have asked for, 5 or 10 million to begin with. But now they know that, and now they're empowered with that payday.
Yeah. And it's almost like the stock market if you think about it. You're setting a precedence for pricing.
But
And yeah, and that's where you come in because you have knowledge on the market and you
yeah,
can find a way to communicate with the family to take a pause and really understand the dynamics going on because to them, they just want their family member back. To
they
the
want their family member back yesterday. They want to forget about this. They don't want the police involvement, and so I help them manage that. And if I've worked on many cases with the police, with the local governments. In most cases, the victim's family or the company has access to contacts with the government, and so we use that to uh, to give us an open door to manage the case. We've been very
often
successful with that.
how often do you come across executives just thinking they're not a target or even just family, high profile folks thinking they're not a target?
Well, like I said before, Tony, the first thing I hear is, "We never thought it would happen to us." And then the victim comes back and he goes, one of their first words is, "I never thought it would happen to me." So it's almost 100% of the time people don't think it will happen to them. I had a family I was giving a security briefing to. They lived in a cul-de-sac. Every person in that cul-de-sac, except for the family I was talking with, had been at a kidnap case in the past 3 years. And they ended up moving very quickly once I pointed these things out to them. And they kind of put it together right there. It just came to real their eyes were open regarding, they're next. And they were. Eventually they did have a kidnapping. Their daughter was kidnapped. And the bad guys had been after her for 3 years. She
So
had,
they see them move into the neighborhood and then move out and then just track them.
well, it took them 3 years to get her because she had, through no pre-thinking on of the father, the family, they had changed their modus operandi, their route, where they lived, where she went to school, a different car. Those things break the routine. And so there's going to be a kidnap. Either target A is going to be kidnapped or target B is going to be kidnapped. If they don't find target A on the day of the kidnap, then they go for target B. So they have a backup plan.
Yeah.
She was eventually kidnapped, and they asked her, at this date, where were you? Because we were just going to get you, and you didn't show up. Well, she had changed parking areas at her school.
So the slightest things can save you.
Exactly. And it's things that you can do to prevent to be a harder target. And the things that you can do on a daily basis, which you should be done on a daily basis, breaking your routine.
What gets people on these lists? I mean, are these guys just sitting down and just scrubbing neighborhood records and
No, they on the media, social media, the social events, the newspapers have that, the media has that publicized about weddings, about engagements, about business deals. I had a client. He said, "Mike, we have a pretty good sized business. We employ so many people in the neighborhood, so many people in the town here. They know us. We pay our bills. Uh, we're good people, and we got kidnapped. Why is that? A guy that also has a business similar to mine. He lives several streets down. He parties all day. He has an airplane that he buzzes around. His car and his airplane are the same color. Everybody knows him you can't rely on him to show up when he's supposed to. Why is that we're kidnapped? We're good people, church going people. This guy down the street, he's unreliable. I go, well, because you're an easy target. You pay your bills on time. People know where you're going to be. People know you can pay a rent. Whereas your neighbor, he's unreliable. He doesn't have a routine. They know you will pay. He may not pay.
Yeah. Maybe
So
a wild lifestyle sounds like.
goes to discotheques, has wild parties,
Yeah.
but he doesn't have he doesn't have a routine. Whereas the family I was working with had routines, good routines. It works for them, but it also works for the bad guys.
Now, how do companies educate their employees on this? Or
Security,
are they just oblivious to it and they wait for? Are they more reactive or is it proactive?
much more reactive. But when I'm able to give briefings and give them the knowledge of what they need to do once they leave their home, uh, and they follow that, then they become difficult targets. And I've seen lists of possible targets that we've picked up when the client noted they were being surveilled. We sent the team down, picked the person up, frisked them, and found a list of people they were targeting. Most of those people had been scratched off, and next to their name was too difficult, does not have a routine, appears to be wealthy, but isn't. We saw a
Wow.
circle around our target, our client. And so the bad guys look to see who is the easiest person. Like I said before, they're all worth about the same amount
Who's
to
easy?
the bad guys. So who is the easiest target? And that can be these days. I see family members of the person that has the purse, holds the strings to the purse, the money, the family members being targeted. Because once you get to the business owner's son, daughter, or wife, then you've got them. Used to be with insurance, people were only insuring themselves, other men in the business, in their business, and not the women, because women were not kidnapped. Once a woman has a successful business, the likelihood of her being kidnapped or her a family member of hers being kidnapped goes up just to the same level of any male. That's what they're looking for. The bad guys are looking for money. It's nothing. It's not against the family. It's not against society. It's for money.
Now, I live in an area where, you could be sitting next to some very wealthy people, no security team, nothing, right? You feel safe. Does that happen in the Washington area? Is
It
it, is it more than we think?
I would say extortion would be an area where they are more likely to be targeted at this time. Could it escalate in the Washington area? So many of my clients from South America come to the United States, to Washington, put their put their relaxing clothes on and be able to walk around. So yeah, it can feel safe, it can be safe, but you have to have your guard up. You have to know where safe areas are. Is it safe around your residence? Is it safe on the route from point A to point B, from your residence to work, from your residence to the coffee shop, from the residence to another business? Are those areas safe? And for the most part, they are. But you just don't know who could be watching you for whatever reason. And their reasons are could be that you've said something on social media that somebody is going to target you for that. You have a disgruntled employee that they're going to target you for that. And so they begin to gather information. In most cases that I manage here in the States or in worldwide, the bad guys have gathered information from inside sources. And so they have that access. So as a business owner, you want to guard your personal information as much as possible and be in a state of being relaxed, but at the same time being aware of who is around you. And I tell people, if you see somebody around your home or apartment, and then you see them again on your route, or you see them again parked outside of the business office, that's suspicious. And you want to react. You want to know what to do about that. And that's what I train people how to react. To be alert, to spot the unusual, the suspicious, and that
Yeah,
can happen anywhere in the world.
yeah. A lot of people here take vacation in Mexico.
Hmm. I know I took my wife there a couple of times. Yeah. Many of the clients do have insurance, many do not. I manage the cases the same, whether there's insurance involved or not.
Now, what's the difference with having insurance involved, other than there's a contingent pot of money that could be available?
In all cases, the family or the company has to come up with the ransom money. I don't arrive with a bag full of money.
Hmm.
So it's when it's an insurance case, it's reimbursed to the client. And I'm part of that proving that it's a legitimate kidnap for ransom, that there's no chicanery going on, self-kidnapping going on, that the money that for the ransom is sent out. I count it, I help package it, and help select a person to deliver that. I don't do ransom deliveries.
Like, so who buys the bags?
So who carries the bag? Well, a trusted employee who is not kidnappable.
So that guy's probably.
No,
Mhm.
there's no need to be armed. There's no need. He's a delivery. We're using him as a delivery person. He's not a family member. He's not a friend or a neighbor that is also equally as wealthy, and they could extract a ransom for that. I had one case where the delivery person was kept. They released the victim and kept the delivery guy. And they called us after 3 days and said, "We want $1 million for Peter." And our answer was, "Well, call Peter's family. That's his problem. We can't help you. You've already taken our money." And they hung up, and the next day they released him because they're not going to go through the same thing again.
Yeah, yeah. They don't push their luck. Sounds like.
Yeah, they made a mistake, and in some cases, I have to train the bad guys on what to do, when to do it, and I get them to do that. I personally, my Spanish is good, but
Hmm.
it's not perfect. It's not my tone is not from Mexico. My Spanish is not from Venezuela. My Spanish isn't from Peru. A lot of people say, yeah, your Spanish has a tone of Argentine in it. I said, yeah, well, I spent 3 years in my first 3 years in Argentina, and so that's why. From Argentina, we went to Peru. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, we can hear the South American tone in there.
So are you a Messi fan?
No,
So which Latin American soccer team do you root for?
yeah, yeah, soccer is one of my favorite sports. Of course, I grew up with it, and there are good teams here in the States, and that's who I follow.
So with technology evolving and new geopolitical risk emerging, how do you see the security and management landscape shifting? And what should businesses be aware of as they send their executives out to the world in this environment?
They have to be armed with the knowledge of how to take care of themselves, and not be lured into a situation that they can't control. With technology, the bad guys can reach from one continent to another using technology, and they do. A friend of mine, a lawyer, she called me up and said a client of hers is going to take a business trip to Africa. Nigeria and to get into business with some Nigerians. And, whoa, red flag. So she described the situation to me. And then I told her what it looked like to me. He did not go. Shortly after that, a businessman was publicized how he was lured into Nigeria
Mhm.
for a business deal and he was kidnapped as he arrived. Even though they had sent the person from the United States, they had sent him tickets, first class tickets. They showed him they had pictures of the person that would pick him up. They had a picture of the limousine they were going to be using. They had exchanged documentation of the business. And once this person that was eventually kidnapped, they shared with us that everything looked legit, and even he was receiving more perks than what he expected as he arrived. And then getting into the limousine, which he recognized the driver, he recognized the vehicle. As he's getting into the vehicle, he notices that the seats are torn. It smells inside. At that point, it's too late. They shoved him from behind and he was taken away and held for almost a month until the family paid. In all cases, the company or the family is going to pay a ransom. If they do not, the likelihood of the victim, your loved one, being killed is almost a certainty.
So they don't even return the victim if you don't pay. So
If
what
you,
happens if somebody doesn't have the money
well, in
and then
many
they
of the
still have
cases,
insurance?
in many cases, the victims do not have the money at hand. So they borrow, friends lend them money, other family members lend them money. That's the information that I help them gather. Okay, on a piece of paper, write down names and how much they have lent to you. And in some cases, what percentage rate they're asking for. And so they gather the money quickly. In many cases, they have the money, but in many cases as well, 50% of the time, they have to borrow money to pay the ransom. And then the ransom is reimbursed if there's insurance. If there isn't insurance, then they owe that money back or they have taken it out of their savings. But it hurts. It's very painful to see families that have given everything they have and there's no insurance. There's no reimbursement of that.
That is generally the reason they don't have insurance. I help people with estate planning and life insurance, especially.
Hmm.
And there's just, there's a good subset of the community that just, for some reason, it's become a religion and they don't believe in it.
Exactly. They feel that they're going to be on a list
Yeah.
more kidnappable if they have insurance. That is definitely not the case. I would say that probably 10% of, maybe it's a little higher, 10%, 10 to 15% of businesses do not have kidnap for ransom insurance. They're self-insured, or they just don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about it. And I've been around some people like that. Nope, don't want to talk about that.
Interesting. Yes, it's a lot like life insurance.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, self-insure. I mean, how do they figure the costs? Because it's a dollar for dollar payment in that,
Hmm.
you know, as opposed to 10 to 15 cents on the dollar. I don't know what the going rate is for K&R insurance, but I imagine it's a lot cheaper than dollar for dollar.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It is. I'm not an insurance guy. I don't know what it is, but from what I have heard, the quotes that I've seen clients accept is it's doable. It's very doable. And these are not wealthy people or rich people. They're people that have a business. It's a
Mhm.
growing business, and it's part of the patrimony they have really for the family. They want to secure their wealth, and having an experienced consultant, if it should happen to them or a family member, having somebody with experience will helps them. And business people know that usually because they surround themselves with executives that have expertise in a certain field, in, let's say, sales, in finance, in production. So the business owner has a business mindset, but he's not an expert in every situation. And with a kidnap case, like I said before, it's a business for the bad guys. So having somebody like a professional like myself with the client, I treat it as a business. My heart breaks as well, but I treat it like a business because that's what gets the loved one back home, paying a ransom. Not necessarily paying as quickly as possible. Not paying what the initial demand is, knowing what the going rate is, and getting to that point of the going rate.
Wow.
And I help them during the case, giving them uh, recommendations as to what amounts to start with and where we project the end will be.
Now, all this has got to take a toll on you mentally after each case, because each case is unique. And, I understand they could be all the same structure in some regards, but for you,
They begin one way and they end this one way. Everything in between is different.
so how do you take care of yourself
While I'm on a case,
while you're
there,
on, and then after that case is done?
yeah. So when I'm on the case, there's a lot of downtime. So uh, staying with the family, being close to the family, making my time is managing the family as best as possible, having them go back to work, the kids, making decisions, helping them make decisions as whether the school age kids go back to school or not. If other family members should come in to help or not, is it needed? I help manage the family to make sure that I try that they don't make any mistakes by reaching out to bad actors. We have contacts that are kind of black hat people themselves, and they have contacts in the underworld who can help us. And I said,
Mhm.
no, let's just wait for contact from the bad guys, from the kidnappers. Wait for that. Don't try calling your husband's cell phone or your daughter's cell phone, your son's cell phone. Just let them call you.
Hmm.
That's a position of strength. If you start reaching out to your friends, to your colleagues, contacts, you're messing up the water. Let things settle and have the bad guys contact you. No, we have contacts in the police department that can help us. Well, maybe we can use that later on. But for now, let's just wait for our call to come in and get things rolling.
Yeah, so that definitely has a lot of trust has to happen right away with your team.
Yeah, and the my goal is to get the company or the whole family uh, on the same page. And so I put it on paper where we started, uh, the money line using a graph. I'll have the money line and then a timeline, and I show them as we progress. This is where we are, and I show them how the bad guys have come down with their demand and how we have inched up. And I show them where I think we're going to end up. And I had a case where the husband was completely on board. The grandfather and the uncle and a friend were completely on board. That was my team. The mother she was dying on the vine. She was just so distraught. We showed the husband the graph after 4 days, and he took it up to his wife, showed it to her, explained for the 100th time, the process that is being used, and you can see it working. As she came downstairs, gave me a big hug and said, I'm on board. I can understand this. And so we moved forward. We got her son back, and when the boy was in, He's crying, he's laughing, crying, he's laughing. He turns to his father and he goes, they really think you're a real son of a because they hate you. They never want to bother the family again. You're too much trouble. That is music to my ears because what I want to do is make it difficult for the bad guys so they don't repeat the same type of business with them or any other member of the family. And if you don't manage it correctly, you're going to have that problem. If you pay them what they want in the time period they want, it's an easy job. They will repeat it. They will repeat it immediately, a month from now, or a year from now, because they know what you're going to do. And like I said, it's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
It really is, and it's something that you don't want to have repeated. Hitting this type of a problem is the best thing to do. And with technology and the way it's going, extortion is going to be a big part of it. Yeah, extorting over the electronically, the internet, through letters. It's on the rise. And will it happen more and more here in the United States? I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The answer is knowing how to close the door to those attacks.
Yeah. It sounds like, we're going to be doing something here in the future with regards to that type of training. I'm
yeah,
excited for that. So I think for families and even business owners that frequent these places, it's important to at least have a baseline knowledge, and then after that, they can engage you for services or
definitely. Yeah.
briefings or whatnot. Because I think now more than ever, information is free flowing out there, and for a lot of businesses, if you're not out there, you're not earning.
Exactly.
So you can't be. So there's got to be a fine balance, but also just be diligent on your own personal protection.
You
Because
are your personal protection is the number one source of staying free from being a victim of a kidnapping or extortion. Knowing how and when to close the door to the bad guy, making yourself a difficult target, making your executives a difficult target, making your family a difficult target, which means a lot of freedom
Mhm.
to moving around worldwide and moving around in the business world, which a lot of it has to do on using the internet.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I could just sit here and listen to you all day.
I can tell stories all day.
I have one last story to close it up, and then
Okay, I had a case. It was two cousins. They were both kidnapped at the same time and held in the same room. One of them was treated very well. The other one suffered beatings and mistreatment. The way they acted made the difference on how they were treated. The 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 cousin that was treated well, he gave when asked a question, he gave an answer that was believed, and it was the truth. He helped the other. There was him, his cousin, and three other victims in the same room. He helped his cousin, of course, and he helped the other three people as well, staying calm, staying focused, keeping the area as clean as possible. They didn't have a lot in common, but he found the common grounds with the other victims. He also found common ground with the kidnappers that were guarding him. And so he humanized himself, and he humanized the others as well. He reached out to them. Whereas his cousin was crying and whimpering and didn't like the taste of the water that they gave him, didn't like the food that they offered him. And he paid the price for that because of the rejection. They rejected him, and in several instances, beat the tar out of him. So the cousin that was released first was the good cousin. The good cousin, realized that they were the fourth and fifth victims being held. He saw that the person that was first, the victim that was with them, that was first taken, he was released first, and he thought that the second person being taken, that had been taken, would be released secondly and thirdly, and so they would be the fourth and the fifth people released, and that's how it played out. Before my client, before the good cousin was released, he was allowed to eat the same food that the kidnappers ate, hamburgers and local food
Yeah.
that was a bit better than what they were receiving as victims. He was allowed to read magazines. They were old magazines, but he was allowed to read magazines. And at the time, there was some important football games on the TV, and he was allowed to be in the same room with the kidnappers watching those football games, soccer games. So he was treated very well. He came home first. Right before being released, he thought that his cousin had already been released because he was such a problem. He learned as he was being led out of the safe house that his cousin was still in the room, locked up, but they had stuffed rags and towels underneath the door so they wouldn't hear him crying and pleading. And his cousin had received some severe beatings because of that. When he was released, when they released him, and you could tell he had received the beatings, tortured,
Yeah.
because of how he was acting, rejecting the water, rejecting the food, rejecting them. Whereas the good cousin, he was treated fairly well. Yeah, he didn't have a bath for a couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
he came out in physically good shape and mentally much healthier. As his cousin came back physically hurt and mentally a wreck. It's very traumatic for the victim once they stop. Once the case is over and they're back home, kind of the trauma sets in a bit and they start to, and I always recommend that people receive some help, emotional.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, after going through something like that, it's very important.
Yeah. The
And
people
also
that
just
have
the
not
family the support you need.
the people that have not received help afterwards, in many cases, have problems. The two groups of people that usually do not are the older. I had an 80 some year old client. He was kidnapped. He came home in mentally good shape, physically good shape, and he went on. And to this day, I don't think he's had any problems. And children, young children. The youngest child I helped return was a 6-year old, and they treated her very well. She said she cried quite a bit the first couple of days, but then the muchachos, the the bad guys, the kidnappers, gave her a job, and so she did that job. And her job was to set the table when they would come for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And she would help clean up, and she helped care for the cook's child, baby. And she even had her birthday with the bad guys, and they gave her a cupcake saying "Happy Birthday." She blew out the candle, and they gave her a doll, and she came home with that doll. Her mother, when she heard her story, couldn't believe it, practically fainted. And it was interesting with that. She didn't hear the story from her daughter because her daughter was told not to talk about this with anybody, or it would happen again to her mother or father or brother. She heard it from her brother because they would go outside and play the swing set and the sandbox. And she told him, her brother was 2 years older, she told him of her experience. And he told the mother, but she never talked about it. Yeah, it really is amazing.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, Mike. Really enjoyed listening
My pleasure. My
to your
pleasure.
story, and yeah, this is a very fascinating world to me. I'm sure other executives should really pay attention, or just families, business owners, whatnot.
Yeah, be aware that it could happen. It could happen to them. And so they have to protect themselves. Having access to somebody like myself is key, and having that professional should have experience, ample experience
Hmm.
in the countries, should know the language of the country that the people are going to, or the consultant should have access to what I call a hand holder, a
Hmm.
local person that can be there from day one until I arrive. And if I need a translator, then I use my hand holders for that. And that's what a professional like myself can do. When I'm not on a case, I'm training people how not to be an easy target. And I get calls from clients worldwide saying, "Oh, Mike, this happened to me. Just wanted to share it with you." It's interesting. Once somebody has the tools that's armed with the information as how not to be an easy target, then they're not. And the bad guys will go somewhere else. And that's what we want. We know there's going to be a problem. I just don't want it to be one of our clients.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the seminar we got coming up with ICMG and seeing the work there. And I hope to see you soon.
You bet. You bet. Always available.
Hey,
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
All right.